So welcome everyone to the second session of the first day of the Collectors Conference. Thanks for joining us. Today we're here with Nick Amor, who's going to be presenting his Genesis exhibit. So without further ado, it's over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Matt, for the introduction. As you say, I want to talk about my one frame display entitled Genesis, GB Postal History, December 1839 to May 1840. As many of you will know, the book of Genesis opens with the words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth." And my study period saw the beginning of the world's modern postal system. To begin with a few words about context. In 1840, the City of London was the commercial centre of the world, and in an age before telephone or email, heavily dependent upon postal communication. Between 1800 and 1850, the rate of GB population growth was higher than at any other time in recorded history. And in that half century, GB industrial output increased fourfold. This meant migration from the countryside to towns, particularly of younger people. New railways facilitated this mobility. The famous locomotive, the Rocket, won the Rainhill Trials in 1829 and so launched the railway era. And this all pulled extended families apart. And the literacy rate, especially among women, was rising fast. Between 1800 and 1850, the output of printed books increased threefold. And ordinary people had a greater political voice. The Great Reform Act of 1832 did not satisfy all the demands of the Chartists, but it significantly expanded the franchise to the very people who might like to post letters. Here are Henry Cole and Rowland Hill, both courtesy of the National Portrait Gallery. Together, they provided the driving force behind postal reform, and ultimately they overcame the opposition of Colonel Maberley, who was Joint Secretary to the General Post Office, and who, among many others, was anxious about the loss of government revenue from lowering postal rates, and the opposition of the Grand Old Duke of Wellington, who, albeit that he expressed great reluctance and pain in giving way to reform. In 1837, Hill published Post Office Reform, Its Importance and Practicability, and he and Cole rallied public support in a well-organised and successful campaign. Cole published and distributed free of charge the Post Circular as a propaganda newspaper for the cause. In 1839, the Postage Act passed through all its stages and received royal assent in just 4 weeks. Hill became an advisor to the Treasury with responsibility for overseeing postal reform, and Cole was appointed as one of his senior assistants with responsibility for development of the Mulready stationery and adhesive postal stamps. Despite Maberley's concerns, postal traffic increased dramatically as a result of reform, as did GPO income. In 1839, only 75.9 million chargeable letters were sent. In 1840, the figure was 168.8 million, and by 1853, it was 410.8 million. That's nearly 500 million letters a year. During my Genesis period, there were 4 principal innovations. First, lower postal rates, a 4-penny post, and then a uniform penny post, determined solely by weight. Secondly, prepayment for postage. Thirdly, postal stationery, parliamentary envelopes, and Mulready envelopes and letter sheets. And fourthly and finally, the very first adhesive postage stamps, the penny black and the Tupperney blue. Well, that's enough for background. Let's now move on to my collection. We'll start with a pre-reform item. Before the 5th of December 1839, the basic rate for the carriage of a single sheet was 4p for the first 15 miles, and for longer distances rose by steps until it reached a shilling for 300 miles, and then a penny for every additional 100 miles. Heavier post, of course, cost even more. Here is an entire sent and postmarked on the 4th of December 1839, the last day before postal reform. It went from from London to Leamington Priors, what we now know as Royal Leamington Spa in Warwickshire, a distance of just over 80 miles. It is stamped with a manuscript 1 6p charge. The entire enclosed a writ which explains the extraordinarily high postal rate, and also perhaps why the sender did not wait to take advantage of the new reduced 4p rate, which was introduced on the following day. Now, to give you some idea of the value of money at that time, 1 6 was a day's pay for an agricultural labourer. Let's move on to the 4p post. The Postage Act of 1839 introduced the 4p uniform rate for mail up to ½ ounce in weight on 5 December 1839, and was the first step in Rowland Hill's reforms. It remained in force for only 36 days before being superseded by a uniform penny post. At the top on the right, you can see an entire sent and postmarked on the first day from Kent Road to Birmingham and stamped with a manuscript 4. If the correspondence was prepaid, as in this case the 4 was in red, and if not, it was in black. Below on the left, you can see an entire sent from Glasgow to Hamilton and cancelled with a hand stamped 4, again on the first day. Now, these hand stamps were supplied by the firm of Alexander Kirkwood and Son, who remain in business in Edinburgh today. The Kirkwood 4 standard hand stamps were distributed to larger post offices. They reached Dundee, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Perth, and possibly Leith in time to be used on the first day. Outside Scotland, only 2 examples of hand stamped first days are known, one from Oxford and the other Dublin. Here is a British fire insurance policy, again sent and postmarked on the first day, 5 December 1839, with a red Maltese cross type Charing Cross, and it's charged with 8p. That's the double rate for a weight between ½ ounce and 1 ounce. Now, during the 4p post period, only 32 English post offices are known to have used 4D hand stamps to cancel mail, one of which was Carlisle. This is a part entire from Carlisle to Belfast. It's hand-struck 4 in black, so it's not prepaid, with a dispatch CDS of the 23rd of December 1839, which makes it the earliest surviving example of this Carlisle hand stamp. And it's cancelled again on arrival in Belfast the following day. Examples of the use of such 4D hand stamps on or after the 10th of January 1840, when 4p became the prepaid rate for a letter or packet weighing 1 to 2 ounces, are exceedingly rare. This is an entire from Carlisle addressed to Messrs. Blearmeyer, solicitors of Penrith, and it provides the sole surviving example of the use during my Genesis period of a 4D hand stamp that had also been applied to post during the 4p post period. And if we look back and then forward again, you can see that the hand stamp is exactly the same on the 2 entires. This one here is in black and red to show prepayment. It's got 2 dispatch CDS, one on the front and the other on the rear, and they're both of the 20th of April 1840. The entire enclosed legal documents bringing its weight above an ounce. More on the penny post. A penny post had operated locally within London and some other cities since the early 18th century. On 10 January 1840, the penny rate was extended nationwide to all prepaid correspondence weighing no more than half an ounce. If not prepaid, the charge was twopence. Some towns used pre-existing hand stamps to cancel the uniform penny post. This is a good example. It's an entire cent and hand-struck 1D with paid at Leeds cancellation on the first day of the new rate from Leeds to Settle in Yorkshire. As you can see from the date stamp, the date actually given is 1804, but it is clear from the correspondence that this is in error and it was 1840. Here is an entire sent from Cork to Uckfield in Sussex via Dublin and London. As payment was only made on delivery, the charge was twopence, and you can see a manuscript 2 there. The sender added his name Hawks, just above and to the left of the 2, to the front of the entire, so that the recipient knew from whom it came and that the twopence would be money well spent in taking delivery. And here's the image on the reverse. The entire was stamped on 10 January 1840 in Cork. That's the first day. Again on 11 January in Dublin with a diamond mark. And then for a third time on the 13th of January when it arrived in London with a single circle mark. Free franking. Before the introduction of the penny post, members of both Houses of Parliament enjoyed the privilege of free franking. That is the right to send, free of charge, letters weighing not more than 1 ounce. It was an arrangement much abused by friends and family of members who were happy to take advantage of this perk. The sender of this envelope, Brownlow, was almost certainly John Cust, 1st Earl Brownlow, who owned Belton Lodge in Torquay. And the front here bears a London crowned arrival mark, free, 6 December 1839. Here's the image on the reverse. As we can see from the Torquay cancellation on the left, the envelope was sent on 5 December 1839, the first day of the fourpenny post. The free franking privilege was withdrawn 36 days later with the introduction of the penny post. Parliamentary envelopes. When postal reform swept away this parliamentary perk, as a temporary measure for the convenience of members, envelopes were made available for sale in the House of Commons library. These were not strictly speaking the first ever postal stationery, as the Post Office of New South Wales had issued embossed letter sheets strictly for local use from late 1838. As a reflection of the haste with which these parliamentary envelopes were introduced, a wide variety were produced with different papers and watermarks or absence of watermark, but they can be broadly categorised as 3 inscribed Houses of Parliament, valued a penny, twopence and fourpence, 2 inscribed House of Lords, valued a penny and twopence, and 1 inscribed House of Commons, valued a penny. All are rare, but the surviving examples of the Houses of Parliament fourpence and the House of Lords twopence are unique. The Houses of Parliament's envelopes were issued on 16 January 1840, those of the House of Lords a week later, and those of the House of Commons probably a week after that. They remained on sale until May 1840. Here we have a Houses of Parliament penny envelope with a line under the inscription printed on laid paper and watermarked Harris and Tremont, 1839. It was sent by James Stewart, probably the MP for Honiton in Devon, to Henry Paul Esquire in Glasgow. Intriguingly, the envelope appears to have been cancelled on the 9th of January 1840, a week before issue. This was certainly not the case. Here's a House of Commons penny envelope, printed on grey wove paper and without watermark. The quality of this paper was better than that of later envelopes produced from the end of March 1840. It was sent by Fox Mulready, then MP for Perthshire, and later Earl of Dalhousie, to a constituent in Outterrada in Perthshire. The envelope is cancelled 19 February and back-stamped 21 February on arrival. The House of Lords is the scarcest of all penny parliamentary envelopes. Just 55 examples are known to survive, as against 73 Houses of Parliament and 129 House of Commons. It is also the only one that was produced in two different sizes. Here's a House of Lords penny envelope. It's the smaller size, 120 by 82 millimetres, printed on yellowish wove paper and without a watermark. As you can see at the top, it's marked temporary to reflect its transient purpose. The envelope is cancelled 30 March 1840 and it's ex-Royal Philatelic Collection. Mulready stationery. The Mulready postal stationery came into use on the 6th of May, the same day as the adhesive postage stamps. It was designed and named after William Mulready, a Royal Academician, an Irish immigrant made good, and one of the country's leading fine artists. His creation was much admired by his colleagues for its, quotes, poetic design, and was intended to convey the idea of, quotes, friendly and commercial intercourse with remote lands. Unfortunately, once issued, it was ridiculed by press and public alike. The poor lion, who here is hiding behind the Maltese cross, but can be seen better on later images, was the object of particular scorn, looking as mild as if suckled upon ass's milk and having not so much as a growl in the whole inside of him. Ouch. First the envelopes in 1841 and then the letter sheets in 1844 were withdrawn from sale, although they remain valid for postal use. The Mulreadys had two unintended consequences. They spawned several caricatures, and they were also used for printing advertisements, and so became the precursor to junk mail. Here we have a penny Mulready envelope. Sorry. This is a penny Mulready envelope, stereo A145, sent within London and postmarked with a fine Maltese cross and an octagonal 4GDS on the first day. That's the May 6th. Although the Mulready stationery was not valid for use until May 6, it was put on sale on the 1st of May, and a few examples have survived which were used postally before the official first day, and this is one of them. It's a penny Mulready letter sheet, stereo A25. It was sent from Liverpool to Burslem, Stoke-on-Trent, and postmarked with a Liverpool L code CDS and a Hunstruck 1 on the 2nd of May 1840. And you can see that the letter sheet bears the imprint Webb Elpol, so making it the earliest example of a printed advertisement on such stationery, albeit a very small and simple one. As with the adhesives issued on the same day, the penny value Mulready was printed, as we can see, in black, and the Tupperney in blue. This is a Tupperney Mulready letter sheet, stereo A97. It's sent from London to Ipswich, Suffolk, and postmarked with an NCDS code on the 11th of May 1840, within the first week of issue. The word free in the bottom left corner is probably proof that old habits die hard. It was not unusual for those who had once enjoyed the privilege of free franking to continue adding the word free, even though that privilege had been abolished more than 5 months before, and indeed that they had actually paid for the postage. May 1840 post without adhesives. The new penny black and twopenny blue adhesive postage stamps that were to be issued on the 6th of May were not ready until mid-April for printing by Perkins, Bacon and Petch at Whitefriars Street in the City of London. And this tight timetable meant that they were not available for sale on time outside London, Liverpool and possibly a few other major urban centres within easy reach by railway. So prepaid post continued to be used without these adhesives, which indeed did not become compulsory outside London until 1853. Here's an entire sent prepaid on the 6th of May 1840 from the small village of Milch Calder in West Lothian to Edinburgh with May 6, 1840 and paid May 7, 1840 cancellations and a hand-stamped one. And this is an entire sent prepaid on the 6th of May 1840 from Glasgow to Edinburgh with a boxed May 6, 1840 and paid May 7, 1840 cancellations and stamped with a manuscript 4. Now, although the entire itself weighs much less than half an ounce, this unusually high postage charge can probably be explained by reference in the letter to the enclosure of 9 receipts, which must have brought the total weight up above an ounce. Adhesive postage stamps. In stark contrast to the sorry tale of the Mulready stationery, the penny black was an immediate success. Although for security reasons it was replaced by the penny red in 1841, it has remained to this day perhaps the world's best loved postage stamp. A dispute over who invented the adhesive postage stamp rumbled on for over a century after 1840, and for all I know, even today, is not entirely resolved. One claimant, and probably the strongest, was Rowland Hill himself. In 1837, he suggested in evidence to the Commission for Post Office Inquiry that the difficulty of proving prepayment, quotes, might be obviated by using a bit of paper just large enough to bear the stamp and covered at the black with a glutinous wash, which the bringer might, by applying a little moisture, attach to the back of the letter. A second claimant was another postal reform campaigner, James Chalmers of Dundee, whose headstone bears the inscription, quotes, originator of the adhesive postage stamp. One of those who competed in the Treasury competition to design the new adhesives, a Benjamin Cheverton, suggested that a beautiful woman's profile would be the best deterrent to forgery because the human eye would be more alert to a flaw in the face. And what more beautiful woman in England than the young Queen Victoria? And what better image of the young Queen than that used for the Wyon medal that had been engraved to celebrate her first official visit to the City of London. And this image of Victoria as a 15-year-old was used on GB stamps for the remainder of her long reign. The penny black and the twopenny blue were both printed using a method known as line engraving. Now, I won't go into detail now, but I would refer you to Bill Barrell and Mike Williams' excellent presentation on this at Virtual Stampex, which is still available online. As had been the case since 10 January, penny remained the rate for all post weighing less than half ounce, and twopence the rate for half to 1 ounce. Here we have a penny black pear, corner letters IG and IH. Of course, it's imperforate, it's plate 1A, and it's watermarked small crown. It's on a Protestant Dissenters and General Life and Fire Assurance Company policy, sent and postmarked EX Code General CDS on the first day of issue, 6 May, from London to Oxford. It's one of 2 surviving policies sent by the company that day. The other, to Stowmarket, possibly addressed by the same hand, was exhibited by Alan Hollyoake at London 2010. As such, it is only one of only 2 Plate 1A surviving pairs and one of only 2 legal contracts postmarked on the first day of issue, although I must confess that Alan's is much the prettier of the 2. And part of the engraving of the policy is also illustrated. Now, whereas 11,000 sheets of the penny black were delivered to the Commissioners of Stamps and Taxes by 6 May, only 619 sheets of the Tuppeny blue were so delivered. And this makes early examples of the Tuppeny blue far scarcer than the penny black. Indeed, May date Tuppeny blues are outnumbered by first day penny blacks. The first day of issue of the Tuppeny blue has long been debated. There is no surviving example of a 6 May use, and the earliest are the contentious Mackay cover of 7 May and the non-contentious Reform Club envelope of 8 May. In 1936, Godden's Gazette reported a 6 May Tuppeny blue on a penny Mulready, but by 1992, someone had removed the adhesive, possibly the costliest mistake in philatelic history. The better view now is that Tuppeny blue probably was available for use in London on 6 May 1840, making it jointly the world's first postage stamp, and it remained in use as the only Tuppeny value GB stamp until replaced by the Tuppeny Rose 40 years later. And here is a lovely Tuppeny blue, corner letters AC, as with the penny black. Of course, it's imperforate, it's plate 1, it's watermark small crown. And if we look at the reverse, we can see it's an entire cent and postmarked on 22 May 1840 from Glasgow, and cancelled again on arrival in London on 25 May. Where GB had led, other countries soon followed. In 1843, the canton of Zurich in Switzerland, and then Brazil, which issued the famous bullseye stamps. In 1847, the USA and Mauritius, which issued the even more famous post office stamps. By 1874, less than 25 years after my Genesis period, when the Universal Postal Union was formed, nearly every country on earth issued its own stamps. And that brings my display to an end, but I must finish my talk with a plug for the Great Britain Philatelic Society. As someone who is not involved in its management, I have no qualms in saying that it is an extremely well-run organisation. It's got 2 excellent publications, as you can see, and a very informative website. And anyone with a serious interest in GB stamps should join. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Nick. That was excellent, really interesting. I've got quite a few questions, if that's okay with you.
You can fire them. I'll do my best.
So just probably more from a kind of historical context, how relevant or how influential do you think the postal reforms were on just society in general? Do you think they kind of progressed our society a great deal?
Yes, I think they had a very significant effect. They were flowing, as I tried to explain, they were flowing with a tide. Times there were already a changing, but this reform undoubtedly made a big difference. And I guess the best analogy is that most philatelists these days can still remember an age before email, but it's a pretty dim memory. And we're all very familiar with both the positive and the negative differences that it's made to our lives. And I would imagine that if you were sitting at the first UPU conference and you were looking back over 25 years, which is a similar period to the email, you'd think very much the same about postage, low postage rates, and a postal service that had been made available to ordinary people.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Okay. And just personally for you, Nick, what's the appeal of postal history over stamps? Do you have a preference?
I do. I am a historian.
Yeah.
That's what I do, and I'm primarily a medieval historian.
Okay.
This is my one area of interest, if you like, after 1500. But I think that the postal history gives an added dimension to the collection. I'm not terribly scientifically minded, so as you probably gathered from my talk, printing methods and dyes, and they don't really row my boat. Whilst looking at an envelope or entire, seeing from where it's sent to where it goes, and what the history of the rates and the background, that I find fascinating. Tom Sleemans of the United States told me a lovely story last year. And his wife said to him, because he studies the postal history of Suffolk, which is my own county.
Okay.
And his wife turned to him, probably in some impatience, and said, "You know more about these people who send these letters than you know about our neighbours." And he turned around and he said, "Yeah, but I don't read my neighbours' letters."
No.
And when you actually look into the letters, and you know, as I have done with several of these, I mean, a lot of them are fairly dry solicitors type stuff, but there's a lot of human interest in them as well.
Yeah.
So that's what I find fascinating, and adds the dimension to my collection.
Yeah, and then the presumably the free franking and the parliamentary stationery adds another element to that. If you can kind of find people that were
Yes,
influential
you can track down who was sending.
Yeah.
And you find out a little bit about them. And the Dictionary of National Biography can generally fill in a few details.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So what advice would you give to someone, who perhaps collects GB stamps but doesn't have any pre-stamp postal history? Is it easy to obtain? Is it always very expensive?
No, I mean, a lot of the material that I've shown is quite expensive.
Sure.
But equally, there's a lot of material, and most of the major dealers have pre-stamped material. And I think what you need to do is to select a topic that you want to pursue. I've got a good friend, Tony Redman, who I actually practiced this talk with at the weekend, and he collects Suffolk. He's a Suffolk man like me. He collects pre-stamped Suffolk postal history, and he's got a nice collection, and he hasn't spent an absolute fortune on it, but it's very attractive and it's got a lot of interest. And Tom Sleemans has done the same. You know, his Suffolk collection is considerably larger than Tony's, but they're both pursuing an interest. And yeah, the material is out there, and certainly the first 40 years of the 19th century. The further you go back, clearly, the more scarce material becomes. But you can build up a nice collection. Keep your eye open.
Yeah.
Visit Stampex, visit other stamp fairs. Flick through the envelope boxes. Find something interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. So I think finally, the Mulready envelopes always fascinate me. Just the idea of that particular illustration, why they chose that one. It seems like a strange thing for them to do. But I guess, do you think at that time that was the more natural thing to do, to just think, well, we'll just produce stationery rather than anything else?
Well, as we know, that was certainly Rowland Hill anticipated.
Yeah.
The stationery would be far more successful than the adhesive postage stamps. And the cognoscenti thought so too. They thought that the Mulready was a wonderful
Yeah.
design, and they had a very high opinion of William Mulready, and who undoubtedly was an outstanding fine artist.
Mm.
But as we so often find, the people, the populace, did not agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the postal station didn't go away. As we know, you have the penny pink that comes out in early 1841, followed by the Tupperney blue. So postal stationery survives as a concept, and does so until technology took us in other directions. But the Mulreadys, I think, until they were revived in the interests of postal historian and philatelist, sadly died a premature death.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the way that they were used, the way that they were caricatured, and the Stanley Gibbons Index has pages of these caricatures, and that's a nice collection in itself.
Yes.
Not the one I've pursued, and the way that they were used as advertisements. I know Tom Sleemans is actually producing a volume on Mulready advertisements that hopefully we'll see soon. Which take the subject that much further, but it's how it moved in different directions that people didn't anticipate.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thanks so much for your time, Nick. It's been really interesting. And just to let everyone know, the conference will continue here at allaboutstamps.co.uk over the next 3 days, and then all the content will be available until mid-December. So if you do want to come back and have a look, you can do. So thanks, Nick, so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.